हेलो फ्रेंड्स, हाउ आर यू ऑल डूइंग? कैसे हैं आप सभी? मजामा छो, केम छो, मजामा छो? आई एम नॉट वेरी गुड इन गुजराती, but I hope you all are doing fantastic. And let us continue our next session on urban sociology, which will be on urbanization. Last two lessons we have discussed about the basic concepts in urban sociology, and in this session, in coming few minutes, we will try to understand the various dimensions of urbanization. So, the process of urbanization is supplemented by intense structural, functional, cognitive and behavioral changes. The dual processes of urbanization and industrialization has transformed the rural agrarian societies into urban industrial societies. Urbanization is highly diverse phenomenon, manifesting itself in a multifunctional space, and no doubt drawn attention of scholars of several academic disciplines such as sociology, statistics, our geography, economics, political science, as a result of which there is a vast literature on this subject relating to different countries, states, cities of the world. The extent of urbanization simply involves the assessment of the percentage of urban population in cities and towns. However, the process bringing about the concentration of population into cities and towns of various sizes are not easy to summarize and quantify. So, we are going to do some tough job in coming few minutes and try to understand and streamline into a definite parameter the process of urbanization. So, when we try to understand the concept of urbanization, the urbanization as a process involves an expansion in the entire system of interrelationships by which a population maintains itself in its habitat, and this is what Hawley said about this. According to Eldridge, the most evident consequence of the process and the most common measures of urbanization is an increase in the number of people at points of population concentration and increase in the number of points at which population is concentrated, or both. The various perspectives on urbanization attempt to understand how urban settlement patterns change as technology grows and impacts the scale of social systems. The emergence and expansion of cities has been the historical focus in describing the urbanization process. The innovative developments in transportation, communication and information technology in the last few decades has expanded the scale of urban systems. There is also focus on how new forms of organization are emerging in cities. Population is considered as the chief feature of urbanization, including the social features underlying it. You may definitely wonder, friends, that why population is the focal point of urbanization. It is focal point because of two reasons. What are they? In first instance, it is the population which migrates from rural to urban, resulting in the process of urbanization. The another aspect is a significant population involving itself in non-agricultural activities, and that is why population is the focal point of urbanization. Urbanization is an important process, and as Amos Hawley suggests, urbanization is a transformation of society, the effects of which penetrate every sphere of personal and collective life. It affects the status of individual and opportunities for advancement. It alters the types of social units in which people group themselves, and it sorts people into new and shifting patterns of stratification. The distribution of power is altered, normal social processes are reconstituted, and the rules and norms by which behavior is guided are redesigned. This is how Hawley defines the entire process of urbanization. The characteristic feature of urbanization gives rise to the definition of urbanization as growth of importance of towns and cities in the life of a country or a region which is conditioned by social and economic progress, as the concentration of economic and cultural activities in large urban centers. A large, dense and heterogeneous population gives birth to a new socio-economic phenomenon, the urban way of life or urbanism. It is precisely this phenomenon, my dear friends, and its widespread that are becoming the basic and inherent attributes of urbanization. Berezin defines urbanization as a complete social process accompanied by emergence of a specific way of life which turns the cities into prevalent form of organization of social activity in our century and the centuries to come. Urbanization is also defined as a process of transformation of traditional social institutions, social norms and values. Let us take a minute to understand what are the changes in this value system, what are the changes in the norms. For instance, the urban centers or cities, they are seeing a evolved form of normative system. Probably these kind of values did not exist in earlier times. For instance, the kind of impersonality which is existing in our relationships, the kind of mechanization which is there in our relationships, it is quite a accepted norm. The way families have undergone change, the way collective values have undergone change, the way secondary groups have undergone change, they all reflect different formats and different ways of values. I am not in a position to say whether they are regenerating or degenerating values, because as students of sociology we cannot judge things, we can only read things. And one thing what we are very sure is values are undergoing change. The two aspects of urbanization basically are demographic and ecological. The concept of urbanization implies firstly emergence of cities, secondly, as I just told you, people involved in non-agricultural activities, thirdly, dense and heterogeneous population with cosmopolitan culture. Let us now try to identify what are the causes of urbanization. So, the significant causes of urbanization are industrialization, natural increase of population and migration, especially rural to urban migration. Let us now talk about industrialization, how industrialization impacts urbanization. Both industrialization and urbanization usually accompany each other. The formation of industries usually necessitates a setup to support industrial process and industrial workers, leading to formation of cities. Industrialization therefore leads to urbanization by creating economic growth and job opportunities that draw people to cities. Urbanization typically begins when a factory or multiple factories are established within a region, thus creating a high demand for factory labor. Other businesses like what? Such as building manufacturers, retailers and service providers then follow the factories to meet the product demands of the workers. This creates even more jobs and demands for housing, thus establishing an urban area. Another reason of urbanization is what? Natural increase of population. It occurs when the number of births exceeds the number of deaths. As birth rates decline over time according to the demographic transition model, the role of natural increase in determining the pace of urban population growth becomes less important in comparison to migration. Rural to urban migration. In developing countries, urbanization usually occurs when people move from villages to settle in cities for better opportunities and standards of living. Friends, let me also tell you that there are different types of migration. Migration can be from rural to rural, rural to urban, urban to rural, as well as urban to urban. But with specific context of urbanization and in specific reference to country like India, it is the rural to urban migration which has contributed tremendously in the process of urbanization. So, the movement of people. So, what is a migration? We are talking about so many types of migration. So, migration is nothing but the movement of people from one place to another. Migration is influenced by economic growth and development and by technological change. In few cases, conflict and social disruption also lead to migration. It is driven by pull factors. Pull means which attracts us, that attract people to urban areas, and push factors means someone is pushing you. The push factors that drive people away from rural areas. Employment and educational opportunities in cities are one of the main pull factors which attract people to cities. Several manufacturing and service units are located in cities and offer employment opportunities. There are also more educational institutions providing courses and training on a wide range of subjects and skills. People are attracted to an urban lifestyle and the lively radiances of city life. But this is not the case all the time. In Hindi you must have heard, "Dur ke dhol suhavne lagte hain." So probably city from a distance is radiating, but city has its own challenges. All of these factors result in both temporary and permanent migration to urban areas. Poor living conditions and the lack of opportunities for paid employment in rural areas are the push factors. People migrate owing to poor health care and limited educational and economic opportunities, as well as environmental changes, droughts, floods, lack of availability of adequate productive land and other pressures on rural livelihoods. Age and gender are significant factors in rural to urban migration. Since employment opportunities vary greatly with different jobs for men and women, there is a tendency of more of male migration. Another factor is age. Young people are more likely to move to towns with more elderly people and children left in rural areas. Selectivity in migration affects the demographic aspects in both rural and urban areas. If more men move to towns and cities than women, this leaves a predominantly female society in rural areas. We will also discuss about what are the significant consequences of urbanization. And we all know, friends, urbanization has both positive and negative impacts. Although people are pulled towards the opportunities available in cities, the impact of urbanization are mixed. There are also challenges created by rapid, unplanned urban growth, and I am sure we are witnessing this in all the cities globally as well as in India. Prosperous towns and cities are indispensable for a prosperous national economy. The congregation of economic and human resources in one place stimulates innovation and development in business, science, technology, and also in industry. Access to quality education, appropriate health, social services, and cultural activities is more readily available to people in cities than in villages. In cities, child mortality rates are very less than in rural areas because of better access to health care. For example, the supply of basic facilities such as fresh water and electricity can be achieved with less effort and less cost per person. Schools, colleges and universities are established in cities to facilitate educational facilities and thus develop the human resources. Multiple educational courses provide wide choice for diversified careers. People of many classes and religions live and work together in cities, which creates better understanding and harmony and helps break down the social and cultural barriers. And that is why cities are also cosmopolitan centers which flourish all the cultures, different kinds of norms and values. Cities also have advanced communication and transport networks. On the other hand, rapid population increases and unplanned growth leads to different social, economic and environmental challenges. In developing countries like India, the rate of urban growth creates multiple infrastructural and environmental challenges. It thus affects the most basic services of housing, water supply, sewerage and solid waste disposal. The consequences of urbanization are also reflected through these issues. Let us try to understand one after the other. First, let us talk about housing. So, rapid urbanization leads to housing problems. In developing countries like India, about a third of urban inhabitants live in impoverished slums and squatter settlements. Slums are urban areas that are heavily populated and have substandard housing with very poor living conditions, creating several problems. Slum areas also suffer from deprived housing with small overcrowded houses, using inadequate materials and with uncertain electricity supply, restricted access to water supplies and other civic facilities, lack of sanitation facilities and no solid waste disposal, leading to polluted and degraded local environment. Inadequate healthcare facilities and poor living conditions increase sickness and death rates in secure living conditions. We all are aware about Dharavi, which is one of the biggest slums in Asia. And probably when you are landing in Mumbai, the first glimpse of Mumbai what we see is that of Dharavi. So the conditions is not very good, and we all know the kind of infrastructural pressure which cities like Mumbai, Delhi or even Hyderabad are facing. Another consequence of urbanization is water supply and sanitation. The delivery of water and sanitation services to expanding urban settlements is very challenging. The increased water demand from growing population adds more stress on already hard pressed resources. Water usually is in restrictive supply. Urbanization leads to growing demand for water for both industrial as well as domestic purpose, which conflicts with agricultural demands. Access to safe drinking water and proper sanitation is a huge challenge in urban areas. Overflowing septic tanks contaminate surface water and create a serious health risk for the urban dwellers. The lack of basic indispensable civic services threatens health and the environment of urban areas. Water and air quality. Air quality is a matter of grave concern. The different types of toxic pollutants make water unsafe for humans. Air pollution from vehicular traffic leads to poor air quality. Poor air quality has a significant impact on the health of many urban residents, as well as severely it damages the environment. I am sure you all are aware about the Supreme Court guidelines with regard to addressing the air quality, especially in cities like Delhi, and the observation of Supreme Court that because of the air quality degeneration, the average lifespan of the citizens residing in Delhi has reduced from 9 to 11 years, which is a matter of a very, very serious concern. Solid waste management is also an important problem in urban areas. It means appropriate collection, transfer, recycling and disposal of all the solid material including plastics, paper, cardboard, food waste, electrical waste, etc. It also includes industrial, hospital and institutional waste, which often contain pathogens as well as hazardous and toxic chemicals which need special care. Solid waste management is ineffective in several urban areas. Urban waste often ends up in dumping yards, wastelands, drains or rivers. This is a serious problem in outskirts of urban areas which are convenient for dumping waste because of the availability of open space and ease of access from the central urban areas. This leads to the contamination of groundwater and surface waters. Further, the combustion of such solid waste that also creates another environment problem. When we talk about health with specific reference to urbanization, urbanization positively benefits health concerns since there is easy access to hospitals, clinics, other health services and also emergency services. There are also benefits from easier access to sources of information such as radio, television or nowadays social media, which may be used to communicate information about health to the general public. For example, women who are living in towns and cities, they are more likely to be informed about family planning, which results in reduction in family size and less frequent childbirth with consequent benefits to general health. However, The poor environment, housing and living conditions are the main reasons for poor health in urban areas. Contamination of water sources, poor air quality, high noise pollution, close proximity to other people can lead to the spread of many types of infectious diseases, and in this list COVID has already made its place. Further, consumption of adulterated foods, packed foods, sedentary and physically inactive lifestyle also impacts the health. Friends, let me take a minute to explain you the impact of adulterated food. You all must have seen in various news channels or newspapers that how sweets are made during the festival season. The main ingredient for sweet is khoa or mawa, what you call, and they are using all kinds of detergent powders to make khoa, to make sweets. So adulterated food has serious impact, and we are also seeing that there are very high contents of insecticides and pesticides also in the food what we are consuming. You will be surprised, but I am sure you all are aware that even in mother's milk there has been very high contamination of insecticides and pesticide, because what a mother is consuming is also full of insecticides and pesticides, and this is a serious alarm. Anyways, we will discuss more in detail about urban health in our coming classes, where I will try to elaborate more on this. So apart from these physical effects, infrastructural effects, there are also social effects of urbanization in India. The process of urbanization brings in several economic and social changes. The progressive effects include economic development and educational opportunities. However, urbanization exerts infrastructural pressures. Social problems like crime, prostitution, drug abuse and street children are all adverse effects of urbanization. Inadequate income, overcrowded housing and poor living conditions also leads to violence. Violent crime, which creates a sense of insecurity in its inhabitants, is more visible in the cities than in urban areas. Urbanization has far-reaching effects on larger societal process, structures and institutions like family, kinship, religion and caste, to name a few. With specific reference to family and kinship, urbanization has affected not only the family structure, functions and values, but also the intra and inter-family relations. Urban families are mostly nuclear, and the trend clearly indicates towards a break with traditional joint family into nuclear family. Good or bad, it is indeed debatable. Relations with one's distant kin are weakening or breaking. Urban families no more are completely male dominated. There is a trend of egalitarian family. Moreover, the family jointness is reflected in extended family acting as a ceremonial unit, and close ties with members of agnatic extended family are maintained. Practices such as levirate widow inheritance, widow remarriage, marriage by exchange, polygyny, etc. The impact of urbanization is also seen in urban pattern of increasingly homogenized values and ways of behaving. Thus, urbanization has modified family structure in urban India and is reflected in diminishing size of the family, modification in functions of family and emphasis on conjugal relationships, etc. Kinship is a key principle of social organization in cities, and there is structural harmony between joint family on one hand and the requirements of industrial and urban life on the other. How is caste influencing urban India? You must be wondering and must be thinking that why Vinita is suddenly talking about caste. Caste is one of those social institutions in India without which Indian social structure cannot be discussed, whether it is rural or urban. And it is wrong to assume that caste system does not exist in cities. There is definitely presence of caste, probably in a modified format. So, urbanization and caste, when we try to understand about this, it is generally alleged that caste is a rural phenomenon, whereas class is urban, and that with urbanization, caste transforms itself into class. However, the caste system exists in cities as much as it does in villages, although as I told you, there are significant structural and organizational differences. Caste identity tends to diminish with urbanization, education, and the development of an orientation towards individual achievement and modern status symbols. According to Andrew Betley, a very well-known sociologist, among the westernized elite, class ties are much more important than caste ties. A noticeable change today is the fusion of subcaste and fusion of castes. During pre-British India, upper caste was also the upper class. So, we have to understand this caste class nexus, which I will definitely be talking about in our lesson on urban stratification system more in detail. However, with the emergence of education and the new types of occupations, upper caste necessarily is not upper class. As Betley points that higher caste does not always imply higher class. This is clearly seen in Indian cities where new job opportunities have developed. The unique characteristics of caste in terms of rules of food restrictions, occupational choices, and untouchability do not exist in cities. As you all know, friends, untouchability has been abolished under Article 17 of Indian Constitution. The incidences of inter-caste and inter-region marriages also have increased. With reference to neighborhood interaction in urban settlements is marked by high degree of informality, and caste equations in such interactions have faded. When we try to understand that how status of women has undergone change with specific reference to urbanization, we see very interesting trends. You might be wondering that why we are talking about status of women in this context. Whenever we are talking about the social aspects, status of women is an important component of its discussion, because if you are not focusing on women empowerment or the role of women, we are ignoring 50% of the population. So, urbanization has led to several positive developments in the socio-economic lives of women. Increasing number of women have taken to professional education, white collar jobs, and entered different professions and occupations. I am sure you must be knowing what is a white collar job, white collar and blue collar. White collar jobs are usually managerial kind of jobs, and there is one more terminology, it is a very interesting terminology, pink collar jobs. So, when women take up managerial jobs, it is called as pink collar jobs. So, these professions, they have contributed immensely and were instrumental in enhancing the socio-economic status of women. This has also facilitated the empowerment of women. Women perform multiple roles by putting in rigorous hours of work both professionally and personally. Professionally, loyalty along with increased autonomy. Urbanization has not only enhanced the educational prospects but also has increased the age of marriage and lowered the birth rate. However, it has not brought about any drastic change in the traditional pattern of arranged marriages with dowry. The status of urban women, because of being comparatively educated and liberal, is higher than that of their rural counterparts. However, in the labor market, women are still in a disadvantaged situation. While women in cities have more opportunities to find employment both as white collar workers or in the unorganized sector, they are open to more vulnerabilities than rural women. Thus, while rural women continue to be dependent on men both economically and socially, which may not be the case all the time, urban women are comparatively and relatively independent and enjoy a better freedom. Friends, we have so far discussed various dimensions, causes and consequences of urbanization. In this context, I am reminded of our former president, Dr. Abdul Kalam, one of the most friendliest presidents India has ever seen. Apart from several of his contributions, one contribution which has always impressed me as a student of sociology is that of PURA, P-U-R-A. What it means? Provision of urban amenities in rural areas. What Kalam Sahab aspired is, if you are able to provide the best of services in rural areas like best education, best health care, good communication system, better facilities for women, then the rural to urban migration can be controlled to a great extent. And this is a wonderful visionary idea, and I am sure lot of work is happening on this particular concept in different states, as well as even our national government has come up with so many such policies which is addressing the challenges in rural India. As I told you in one of our classes that if urban areas has to develop, our rural areas have to be developed. They cannot be seen in isolation. So, the consequence and the challenges of urbanization from a negative perspective, I mean to say, it can be addressed to a great extent with rural development also. Irrespective of what is the pace of urbanization, what remains fact is there are challenges, there are infrastructural problems, there are socio-psychological and cultural impacts of urbanization which requires more and more of analysis and more of quick solutions. So, on the basis of your own reading, if you have any suggestions with any kind of our urban challenges. Anyways, in our coming units, we have a series of urban problems which we will be discussing more in detail. So, right now, in case if you do any reading and you come across any such positive solution for any urban problems, please feel free to share with me. Please also share your ideas, your questions, your queries, your observations on my email ID pandevini@gmail.com, and I will meet you very shortly with another very interesting lesson where we will talk about the relationship between urbanization, industrialization and migration, though in a very subtle form we have already discussed in this lesson, but more in detail we will discuss in that forthcoming lesson. So, till then, thank you all for being with me. Be happy, be safe, take care. Bye-bye.